Hello YouTube, Falcon2762 here. Welcome back to Chapter 10 of Peppermint Winter, Part 2. I apologize if I didn't do this in a long time, because, yeah, you get the idea. The writer's block now soon has arrived in Switzerland, and, snow has arrived in Switzerland, so now I was able to get back into the audiobook. I apologize. And anyway, yeah, welcome to Part 2 of Chapter 10. Don't get this in Beaver Creek every day, Demick said randomly as his hand swept over the leaves that belonged to the vineyard. Arya was about to question him with a confused look when Emily intervened and nervously smiled. He's mentioning Ohio. Oh well, that's a better place. Arya laughed as they continued walking down the pathway that led to a large lake dotted with feather-ruffled swans drifting across the lake, and many other small birds gathered in front of families feeding out little bits of bread at their squawky faces. Halting right in front of the lake, she raised her arms and smiled. Well, here we are. Welcome to Green 80. Whee! Demick yelled happily as he ran through a flock of small birds taking off in fear. Emily decided not to judge his silly behavior as she nervously smiled and panned her surroundings consisting of nature. Anybody hungry? Arya suggested as she helpfully pointed towards the small building just a few feet ahead of her. Its features looked to be recreational center and a restaurant mixed all together. Where? Demick jerked his head around towards the sound of food after dealing with the swan who nipped his ear every time he looked away. I think you shouldn't have mentioned that, Emily meekly chuckled as she mounted a warning towards Demick. Don't you dare. Why? Giving out a quizzical look, Arya pulled on the glass doors wide open, a full blast of AC slapping their faces with cool relief. Emily tried to hang on to Demick as he tried to drag himself towards a space-themed car racing game, one of the little kids currently focused on the gameplay. Because Emily started with lots of strength applied to her arms, preventing Demick to lose his balance and accidentally knock his head out for a cold for the second time. He's known as the food maniac. Anything that's quality or even sloppy, he'd eat anything that's considered food. Believe me, even his friends tried to control him over the food part. Come on, Dem, you're not a little kid now. Walk with us. Emily softly scolded as Demick let out his signature whine, as "Aww," and let his head hang low with sadness stinging his no heart inwardly. But I just only wanted to try out the kiddie ride. Hey, don't force him into something that you mostly forbid. Just let him try it out. The more he does what he likes to do, the happier he becomes. Arya smiled after a second passed by, looping her arm around her friend's shoulder. Emily had to accept the point. Right, but I highly doubted that he'll ever happen until he properly learns and knows what he's doing. Arya shrugged while sitting down at a table. Your choice. The room environment came alive as the crowds talked, along with the sounds of clinking tableware against ceramic plates and small brown feathered finch birds darting freely around the ceiling pole rafters. Sea Carton Restaurant? Emily inquired, while she took her seat and dangled a small salt shaker in her hands, while glancing at Demick, his face suddenly wistful at the sight of plates and silverware set neatly on the table. I know what you're thinking, Demick, and to prove it, Emily brought out a blindfold, making him yelp with fear. You're getting the mystery dish. What? Not too hard, Arya warned as Emily grabbed Demick's quivering head and successfully wrapped the cloth around his vision, the sight of his few strangers thinking as if he grinned like an idiot. And he really did it just for the sake of his bipolar disorder, kicking back in him again. It was quite pointless to smile when you're about to receive the most dreadful meal of the day. Ordering Arya to keep an eye on the confused Demick, Emily took her order and strolled to self-serve themselves with high-quality food that was irresistible to dig in, that you'd have to pay $1,000 if you want to jump into round 2. Smoked salmon coated with dill sauce, topped with a small block of croûte hair butter on a perimeter white toast on her plate with a side of water in a glass cup for her, while Arya's order consisted of pork fillet medallion splashed with wild mushroom sauce with sides of potato criquettes something and green asparagus along with a glass of Sprite. Demick's order was unknown, so Emily decided to hurriedly pay $1,000 before covering the plate with a small tissue, oily spots forming on the white napkin once it came into contact with the tips of various food. Here's your order, Arya. Emily announced as her friend clapped in glee and thanked her in return, while the blindfolded Demix patted the table auspiciously, trying to sense the invisible plate with his hands, causing both of them to softly laugh at the confused lobster boy waving his arms on the table until Emily set down his plate on the table, warning Demix not to take a single peek. "Oh, please don't tell me he's going to cause another tantrum here," sighed Arya as she stabbed her mushroom coated in a creamy shroom sauce and made it perform circles across the plate. "I'm pretty sure he'll learn under my glare," Emily replied with a smile as she carefully untied the cloth hindering Demix's vision and chuckled under her breath. "Here's yours, my little Demi." "Oh boy, I hope it's something tasty," Demix whispered in excitement as he crossed his fingers in luck to ensure it was one of his favorite meals. Whipping the napkin off the steaming plate, Demix refused to cry in agony and instead welled with anger and balled his fist tightly. "I told you I don't want this!" Slapping the plate full of various steaming wedgies, the contents splattered across the floor along with broken bits of ceramic shards as Demix whined and covered his face with his hands, sobbing. Arya was speechless while Emily crossly glared at him while almost blowing the fuse. The people surrounding them suddenly stopped and stared at them awkwardly, their eyes wide with concern. Even the brown-winged finches stopped darting from ceiling rafter to rafter and stared at the troubled, heated scene between the two. To make things worse, a waiter carrying empty water cups approached them and sternly ordered them to exit the restaurant immediately. Emily knew it was no accident, and she hoped it won't happen during the fondue dinner too. So guys, that is it for chapter 10 for Peppermint Winter. I'll see you guys next time in my other chapters. So, bye guys, Falcon2 Sen62 out.